You know, while everyone is glued to Bitcoin's price charts, there's a much bigger story playing out behind the scenes. We're talking about a silent, long-term threat that's creeping out of the world of quantum computing, and it's a threat that could shake the very foundations of the entire crypto world.
And hey, don't just take my word for it. The experts are already sounding the alarm. Timothy Hollabeek over at DigiCert said it best: quantum computers are not a question of if, but when. And that's the key right there. The fact that this is inevitable is what makes this whole thing so incredibly urgent.
Okay, so let's dig into this a little deeper. While all the headlines are screaming about price swings and the latest regulations, there's this other kind of storm that's gathering on the horizon. It's the quantum countdown. And believe it or not, that clock has already started ticking.
So, what is the big deal here? Well, there's a completely new kind of computer coming. And this thing, it speaks a language that could literally unravel the security that protects everything in crypto. Just imagine a master key that could pop open every single digital vault out there. That's what we're talking about.
All right, but how does that actually happen? I mean, how exactly could one of these machines break through Bitcoin's defenses? Let's get into it.
Okay, here's a really simple way to think about it. Imagine a giant maze. A normal classical computer would try to solve it by going down one path, hitting a dead end, backing up, and trying another, one at a time. A quantum computer, though, it can explore all the possible paths at the exact same time. Now, when you're talking about a problem like breaking encryption, that isn't just a little speed boost, that is a complete, fundamental game changer.
And look, this risk isn't just some theory on a whiteboard. We're talking about right now, today. About 25% of all Bitcoin is sitting in addresses that are immediately vulnerable to a quantum attack. That's a quarter of the entire supply. We're talking millions of coins, and that even includes the legendary stash that everyone thinks belongs to Satoshi Nakamoto himself.
It gets even more specific. Researchers have actually done the math on the kind of firepower you'd need. They figure it would take a quantum computer with about 2,100 stable qubits, those are like the basic building blocks of a quantum machine, to crack Bitcoin's security. Now, that might sound like a big number, but here's the kicker. That number keeps getting smaller. The goalposts are literally moving closer, not just because the computers are getting better, but because the hackers are getting smarter with their algorithms too.
So, you're probably thinking, okay, if the code can be broken, we just need a better code, right? Simple. Well, yes and no. It's not that simple. There is a solution. It's called post-quantum cryptography, or PQC for short. But here's the big twist. It's not really an upgrade. In fact, the researchers who are studying this are calling it a defensive downgrade. It's like a cure for a disease that comes with some really painful side effects.
I mean, just look at the trade-offs here. Think back to past Bitcoin upgrades like SegWit or Taproot. They give us real benefits right away. More capacity, better privacy, cool new features. But PQC? It offers zero immediate upside. All it does is protect us from a threat that's still years away. And the cost? It's huge. We're talking about maybe cutting the network's capacity in half and seeing fees triple. You'd be asking the entire community to agree to make Bitcoin worse on purpose.
All right, let's look at that first major cost, the network's speed, or throughput. On test networks, they've already measured a staggering 52% drop in capacity, but it gets worse. Because Bitcoin is this massive, global, decentralized thing, researchers think the real-world impact would be even more severe. We could be looking at a 60, maybe even 70% reduction in how many transactions the network can handle. That's a massive slowdown.
And, on top of that, there's the second major hit, something called state bloat. Basically, every single quantum-resistant account would take up 59 times more storage space. And this isn't a one-time thing, it's a permanent burden on the blockchain. It would make it way more expensive for regular people to run their own nodes, and that, of course, pushes the network in a really dangerous direction, towards centralization.
So when you put it all together, it paints a really stark picture for Bitcoin's future. I mean, even in the most optimistic, best-case scenarios, where we figure out all kinds of clever tricks and optimizations, the network is still going to be way smaller and less efficient than it is today. We're staring at a future where Bitcoin, at its very best, can only do about half of what it can do right now.
But you know what? All of these technical problems, they might not even be the biggest hurdle. The real problem is human. This is a straight-up governance nightmare. I mean, seriously, how do you convince a worldwide decentralized community of miners, users, developers, and exchanges to all agree to intentionally make the network worse, all to fight a threat that for most people still feels totally abstract and far off in the future?
It really boils down to a classic problem called the tragedy of the commons. If you think about it, every single person's rational individual incentive is just to wait. Miners, they want to keep their revenue up, so they want to delay. Exchanges, they don't want to pay for expensive upgrades, so they want to delay. Users, we all want low fees, so we want to delay. Even the developers want to wait to find the perfect technical solution. And what's the result? A total stalemate, where everyone is just sitting around waiting for someone else to make the first move and pay the price.
So, what this all leads to is a situation where we're basically caught between two different ticking clocks. And they are absolutely on a collision course.
Okay, so here's the race. On one hand, experts estimate that a quantum computer powerful enough to actually break Bitcoin is probably about 10 to 15 years away. But on the other hand, the realistic timeline to get this massive decentralized community to agree on a fix and then actually do the migration is somewhere between 11 and 19 years. And there it is. That's the core of the crisis. The solution is probably going to take longer to implement than we have before the problem actually arrives.
So this really only leaves us with 3 possible paths forward. And honestly, they're pretty sobering. Path 1 is what you'd call miraculous cooperation. The community comes together, accepts the downgrade, and we migrate smoothly. The chance of that happening? Less than 10%. The most likely path, with about a 60% probability, is a crisis-driven response. That's where we basically do nothing until there's a huge quantum breakthrough that forces everyone into a chaotic, rushed, messy migration that will probably cause major losses. And then there's the third path, with a 30% chance. Catastrophic failure. The migration stalls, the quantum attack hits, and confidence in Bitcoin itself completely collapses.
And that brings us to the final and maybe the most important question of all. Because this quantum threat, it's so much more than just a tech problem. It's a fundamental test of the entire idea of decentralized governance. It really comes down to this. Can a world built on individual self-interest actually agree to make a sacrifice today in order to save itself tomorrow?